Now we turn to the harsh reality that sadly many college and university students actually face. That is the mishandling of sexual assault investigations. They're a growing problem at campuses across the country. The feds, they've launched dozens of investigations at schools nationwide. This all brings us to Geneva, New York, where a young woman spoke to the New York Times about how she was sexually assaulted by a football player and went to officials at Hobart and William Smith College about the horrific experience. She says she had to sit before a panel alone and answer uncomfortable questions about the attack. She went on to say that the grilling by the panel almost made her wish as though she had never spoke up about what happened in the first place. Times went on to say that many students have to make a choice after being sexually assaulted. That is, to seek help from the school, turn to the criminal justice system, or altogether simply remain silent. The report also went on to say that many students, like the young lady in the article, come to regret the decision that they went forward, wishing that they had never reported the assault in the first place. Now, earlier today, I spoke with Rebecca Simone, who specializes in sexual assault services at the Victims Assistance Services in Elmsford.
For some survivors and for many survivors, campus adjudication is the only viable option. Of the rapes that occurred, only a quarter of those are reported to law enforcement. Of those cases, only 1/5 are prosecuted, and out of those prosecutions, only half result in a felony conviction. And so, yes, the criminal justice system may seem as though that's the more proper place for these cases to go, but we're not always seeing justice there either.
Governor Cuomo, he's not alone, but in New York State at least says, you know what, let's make the reporting go to the cop. But the DA in this particular case, he says 6 months later, what can I really do with this case? So much of whether it be the actual DNA or the questioning, the case is compromised at that point. Can we really have it both ways? At least if you bring this to law enforcement and the person may or may not choose to proceed with it all the way here, at least you know that there's a set of rules everybody follows. It seems if you go to a campus or a college, depending on the college, you're going to get different treatment.
And that is true, and that's why as a victim service provider, we do recommend opening up those options to support services through Westcott VAS, for instance. What we like to offer is that education, not only to students themselves, but also to the campus faculty and staff, to make sure that that institution is compliant with the VAWA Act, which is the Violence Against Women Act, with Title IX, with the Clery Act, where there's a lot of regulations in place that allow that open process for survivors to really make their own decisions and to be compliant with VAWA when it comes to evidence. It means that a survivor has the option to go seek medical treatment and have evidence collected and not turn it over to law enforcement. And so it's that education that's really important for campuses to have. They're maybe feeling like they're unprepared to handle this. They don't know how to handle it. And so as VAS Westcott, you know, we really want to open that dialogue to make sure students know what those options are and that they get to take it step by step.
Do you think we're at a point right now where this is so much on the national consciousness, what's going on and some of the shocking stories that people are hearing and seeing, that it's easier for people to come forward now? Or is there a greater fear that, hey, look what happened here, they actually released her name, or look what happened here, you know, that they were harassed on campus after the identity was exposed, that it's less likely people come out?
Yeah, that's a hard question to answer, but it's one we need to ask, and I think it's a gamble, depending on the local jurisdiction and the campus and how supportive that community is through friends and family and the campus itself. And so what we do like to say is that we can't ever dictate or guess, you know, who's going to be supportive and who's not. What we do know is that Westcott Victims Assistance Services is that safe place to go. And so here in Westchester County, at least, in the local level, there is a place for people to come.
I want to bring in our next guest, Dan Schorr. He's an attorney and associate managing editor at Kroll, a worldwide investigative services company. And Dan is also an adjunct professor at Fordham Law School, where he teaches a course on domestic violence and sex crimes. And Dan, some of the numbers were shocking me. 1 in 5 women who go to college in their college years will be the victims of sex assault. And more than that, you read the story that happened up at Hobart and William Smith. You have people that they didn't even wait for the rape kit to be processed. They're already asking this young lady the questions. You had a 3-person panel, including that guy who was the chief fundraiser for the college who's there. And I'm not going to ascribe motives to him, but you can certainly argue there's conflicted interest where you don't want to have a headline story out there about a woman assaulted on your campus when you're trying to bring in prospective freshmen and have donors give money. I understand everybody's argument to this, but we can't have it both ways, can we? Don't we have to either say, turn this all over to law enforcement, or expect some of this like unequal justice on college campuses depending on the campus?
Sex crimes investigations are very complicated. You have forensic evidence. You need to know how to elicit information from the victim of the crime and also other witnesses in a way that's helpful to the investigation. So universities, they don't know how to do this. They don't have any training in it. They don't have any experience. Even if you take a major police department or a large DA's office, they still have specialized units to handle sex crimes where people receive special training and know how to handle these cases. A university can't do that. They need to either have law enforcement investigate it or former law enforcement people who are retained by the university who understand sex crimes to investigate it. But in the New York Times story, which you refer, they had just almost random university officials who had no training or background in any kind of sex crimes investigations looking into this and then adjudicating it.
You hear from a lot of young women in these stories the same constant refrain, well, I'm not so sure I want my name getting out there and I want to go through the college. A lot of times the name still gets out there when they go through the college. How does it work anonymity, whether you want to go to the traditional law enforcement replace or repeat an alleged sex assault, or if you go to the colleges? How do the rules work?
Well, some of the colleges promise anonymity, and as you said, they don't always keep that promise. If you go to law enforcement, usually the media won't report the name of the victim of the crime, but the name can obviously still get out, and you do have to testify in public if the case goes to trial. But it's really important that perpetrators of sex crimes are treated by the criminal justice system, because the university, even if they handle a case well, they're not sending this person to jail. No one's going to prison. So if someone commits a rape, they need to be locked away. And that's not going to happen by a university. That's only happening in law enforcement.
And you know this better than I do, but it's not always like you get two bites of the apple. If they screw up the investigation at the college campus level, and either they don't handle the evidence the right way, they don't handle the initial questioning the right way, or whatever else, it's much harder for law enforcement to then pick it up and try and recreate the investigation from the beginning. A lot of stuff is either tainted or compromised, right?
Right. You want to find witnesses. A rape kit has to be done. It has to be, all the investigation has to be done by people who know what they're doing. If that's not done and law enforcement 6 months later tries to recreate that, it may be too long. The forensic evidence may not be around. Witnesses, their memories fade. They may not be interested anymore. Law enforcement or former law enforcement people who know how to do this, they can help build a case.
It's the hardest thing to get rape convictions, especially when we're talking about college campuses, that more often than not it involves alcohol. More often than not, if you look at the statistics, the victim actually knew as an acquaintance or even had a prior relationship with sometimes the attacker, and it comes down to he said, she said, if there's no video or eyewitnesses.
Well, sometimes it comes down to that, and they're challenging cases. That's why you need special training. But a good investigator will find other witnesses who maybe didn't see the sex attack, but they may have seen the victim right after the attack or seen the perpetrator right after the attack. And you can put together clues, different information that comes together. What was the victim looking like right after the attack? Did she come out of her room crying, her hair frazzled, clothes ripped? That, even though it's not proof beyond a reasonable doubt of a sex crime, it's certainly corroborating her version of events, and that can lead to a conviction in court or some other adjudication at a university.
Finally, Dan, you see what the governor's proposing or hinting at proposing in terms of making this turned over mandatory, that it goes to law enforcement. If this follows through and Albany enacts that, will they have made the right decision?
Certainly bringing in law enforcement is the right way to go. Remember, the victim of the sex crime isn't the only person at issue here, because these people are sexual predators. They probably will offend again. They often do. And there's future victims out there that we want to punish this person, lock them up if they committed a sex crime before they commit a crime against other people in the future. And you have to think about potential future victims when you're addressing this situation.
Fascinating. And I'm just curious, I know we're heavy, but when the subject comes up in class and you're having these conversations, have you ever been shocked by some of the conversations, some of the dialogue in the classroom?
You know, I've handled so many sex crimes that it's hard to shock me, but certainly the students that I teach at Fordham are very interested, and they bring up stories that they've either experienced or heard about at schools, and it's very disturbing. This is a major issue, and it's good that it's being covered here so more people can talk about this.
And for anybody who thinks it couldn't happen, again, the numbers, 1 in 5 young women going to a college campus could be the victims of sex assaults. It's just mind-blowing. Dan, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. All right, everyone, we have an uplifting story, albeit one with hardship. A soldier from New Hampshire is awarded the nation's highest military honor at the White House, a Congressional Medal of Honor. We'll have his story straight ahead.